Day two Swiss stage is over, and I gotta say, I did pretty good based on my predictions. But before we go into those results and then how we think round three is going to shape up, we need to look at what's happening with the meta, right? So the first and most obvious thing is that Smolder is being picked a ton today. I was not anticipating to see such a huge resurgence. This was the same thing that happened in the Battle of Americas. And I partially believe that's because teams were playing on this meta where he was so good for so long that it naturally feels like easy to kind of go step right back into it and play around that win con of his. The only thing is, again, you can play Trist into it. This has always been a thing, and Trist is actually a bit of a better pick compared to then. You can actually play Corki into it. No team has messed with this, but you could play Corki into it. You can play LeBlanc, Syndra. The only thing with Syndra is that she's prone to the side lane, like the side lanes. So like this is like something you have to resolve and figure out. And that's why Syndra, even though she's a good pick generally, is kind of suffering a bit. Naturally, you can play Yone, but this guy is literally the all-star pick. I talked about it, going into, the Swiss stage, and then even after round one, it's very clear. Yone is the legit best AD pick. And he can play into basically every mage, so that makes him just a stellar champion. And teams let him through today, and they paid. Yes, there are some Yone lost games, but generally the pick is just a menace, and people do not know what to do versus it. So that's something that has to change. You can play Ori into Smolder. And I'm sure there's other picks that can be taken into this champion. But so far, like I said, teams are kind of playing back towards older meta because, they're just not 100% sure what direction they want to go. And they pair this with maybe some AP junglers if it works well. And that's what's happening. We also have the Mao, again, still the Mao, the Seju, the Iverns, the Vise, the jungles. I think the Nocturne has actually been a really nice addition. I'm glad some teams are looking at this. It's been a really nice addition. The Viego has really dropped off. That is just like not happening, even though he got a little bit of an adjustment. J4 has been pretty invisible, and I feel like a lot of this is because unless it's like Ashe or like Ziggs, a lot of teams are taking their jungle in the 1-3, and then they're basically taking like their top side. Like they're trying to pair their bot lane together in the 4-5, and they're taking their jungle, top, and mid in the 1-3. And so because of this, you don't necessarily want to fully commit to a Jarvan when it might not turn out the best. And also Seju has a little bit more ease of engagement compared to Jarvan in terms of like not full committing, not throwing your entire body. And yeah, for now, he is kind of like not fully there yet. Naturally, Skarner, still a huge priority, whatever, right? So, knowing this, also Jhin, still way up there. Still way up there, actually even more so because I feel like teams saw his performances and are like, yes. So going into today, G2, they had the Yone. I said G2 would beat HLE. That was wrong. That was wrong. It was close, though. They did a really good job. Again, you could see that G2 was using their side lane prowess and how they view the game that way and gaining edges, and that was working versus HLE. Even though we're back on the Smolder on the HLE side, on Zeka's side, and yeah, he was really strong and everything, you can see how the way G2 interpreted the draft in the meta was actually pretty good. They flexed the Poppy into the jungle. Oh, no, sorry, not into the jungle, into top lane. And overall, I kind of liked their draft. I thought they had a good idea, and they actually could have won. But unfortunately, Caps, he didn't back off right away when Jack started TPing, and then he should have instantly TP'd top. And if he did that, they had a 5v4 guaranteed that they could win, and it would be massive. They would have the bot inhib destroyed, and they'd have a big team fight victory. They could win. But it didn't happen that way. It was a very, very close series, and I'm pretty happy it turned out that way, even though I was wrong, because obviously if G2 got smashed, that would have looked really stupid. For the DK FlyQuest series, this was correct. I got this one right. And honestly, it was pretty much how I thought it would go. Like, naturally, Quad is playing the mages. That's what he wants to do. That's what he's good at. And even though Showmaker is also, again, good at control mages, he has a lot more in his pool to mess around with. He picked the Sylas today. And FlyQuest, they chose Syndra in the 1-2, and that's really dangerous because to me it seemed like they were almost trying to do it as a takeaway, but as a takeaway with a Yone in the 1 pick, it was not a good idea. And that put them in a really weird spot when it came to side laning. And by the end of it with the draft, FlyQuest chose Darius because there was a Yone, Sylas, Rel, and what was the jungle pick? Vi. Vi. And so there was, right? I think it was Vi. Yeah. It was Lucid Vi, which, by the way, is like his most banned pick against it because Lucid is an incredible Vi player. So 4 melees into... Oh, and then they had the Smolder bot, which, by the way, definitely do not recommend. It is really hard to play that out. And I think DK's draft was not great. Even though there's things about FlyQuest's draft I didn't like, DK's draft definitely had its errors as well. But yeah, they had a Smolder bot, not necessarily the best thing to do in this meta. And FlyQuest, they chose Darius because they thought, well, for melee, we play into that, it's going to be easy. The thing is, if you're picking Smolder into Ashe, right? They had Smolder versus Ashe. The first thing in your mind is they're always going to lane swap, right? But then if you're taking Darius, he's not really that good in lane swaps. Both he's pretty immobile, no dashes or anything, so he can't really escape out of situations. Yes, he has his Q for healing. Yes, he has his E to help a little bit with some CC sake. But K'Sante was open, and it's just a way better pick because K'Sante can play into Sylas easily, and it's a really whatever ult for him to get. Okay, you can play into Yone and actually side lane versus Yone, which would be massive. And naturally, K'Sante into melees is good. So K'Sante generally is just a more versatile and more like I want to say straightforward, but you can definitely be more creative and use the parts of the map, the spacing better compared to a Darius who's just pretty much like just in front. That's all he literally can do. And that's unfortunately Bwipo just wanted to do that, I assume. I don't think that was even a coaching thing. I think Bwipo just literally wanted it no matter what. He messed up level 1. He felt very useless the entire game. And yeah, it was the Showmaker show. I mean, the guy did incredible. Kingen was pretty whatever, and same with the DK support. Masu did a really nice job, but in the end of the day, it's the same thing for FlyQuest always, and it's they live or die by their top laner. Like, it just seems like this is just the case. They just live and die by their top laner, and this is against a team whose top laner didn't really do too much, and they lost. So that's definitely not good. We had Genji versus Tess. I had Genji over Tess. I think most people would have done that. It was, again, much closer than I anticipated. It's just, how would I describe it? It's like the Rumble pick ended up becoming so good because he picked up a lot of free kills, especially the 2v2 on top when Keen was Mega Gnar, and then the Tien and 369 were playing on him, with Tien sitting in the brush waiting to pounce, and then he had Canyon coming up from the river. All Keen had to do was Mega Gnar ulti the guys backwards, so send them to the left, and if he did that, they both had no flash with Mao R coming up, they would die. They both would die, and then it'd be a huge flip. But it went in Tess's favor because Keen was so focused on getting the wall bang by the tower try. And due to that, he died. And then so did Canyon, because Canyon had to commit. And since they both... Well, actually, Canyon technically did not have to commit. He actually could have ran. But he full committed, he died. And also, it was a pretty bad game by Canyon. In many cases, he did some really weird positioning stuff as Maokai. It was not great to see. And 369 took it. And I didn't see 369 kind of just snowballed out of control. Like, they had a really killer fight by the... I can't remember if it was the Herald or, if it was Herald at the time, but, the Herald pit, the Baron pit. And he killed it. He got, a triple or quadra kill or something. He was on fire. But unfortunately, Genji just kind of kept at it with better movement through this, through mid lane. Like they just had movement where like their dual lane just ran bot. It was really obvious timer, and then 369 shutdown was gone. And it just felt like Gen G was slowly outmaneuvering Tess, especially and with JackeyLove like kind of just contesting mid in like awkward states where like he kind of just loses sums or he just dies, and then it kind of catches everyone off guard. And Gen G just took full advantage of it and they won. Now, I feel like Gen G is still not 100% there. I'm definitely getting more and more impressed by these guys, by Tess. Like I'm taking them more serious, that's for sure, after seeing these games. BLG. Yeah, I thought BLG would beat LNG, and I'm gonna be honest. I think again also like with Tess and LNG now, I feel like LNG's read on the meta is good. Like they seem to know what they're doing. Like I even thought after seeing the draft, I thought LNG did a fantastic job with their draft. Like they're playing Nocturne, right? Nocturne Rumble, and they had a lot of like ability to just be creative on the map. Like they were playing Yone too, right? So I think it was Yone, Nocturne, Rumble. I can't remember what their AD pick was. I'm kind of like blanking on it. Yeah, I'm blanking on the AD pick, but just off those like champions alone, they had a really rough start from what I recall. Oh, I remember. They had an Ashe. Now I remember. So they had an Ashe. Gala was playing Ashe, and he lost his flash. Bot try level 1 because he overstepped, because he thought they would keep going, but they didn't. Because of that, it resulted in them losing their first blue. So Weiwei lost his first blue. And this translated into some mid pressure. So then Scout couldn't, like, Scout had to get zoned, so he's down CS. And then that transferred into the 3 grubs. And it looked like BLG would be able to use their, like, initial advantage pretty well. But to me, I felt like Wei was just not putting nearly enough pressure on the map in terms of just burning sums. Like, he was playing Vi, and I swear to God, this guy did not look to get the flash on mid. He did not look to get the flashes on bot. He kind of was just chilling out. And playing on major objectives with sums up as Vi makes it really hard to do anything. Like, it really is. Like, you need to do these, like, these plays, like, 130 to, like, 2 minutes before. This is, like, really key, especially it was around, like, the 9-minute mark, 9 to 10-minute mark, that there should have been some situations they would look for that make this happen when they were going to have both second grubs up, and then, like, 56 seconds later, it would have been second dragon. But they didn't do that. And they were successful in getting second grubs, right? Like, they won the fight, and it was partially because LNG, like, screwed it up because they were supposed to go through mid, drop 1, maybe 2 grubs, but, like, if they drop 1 grub and there's 2 left, they get the mid push, so Jhin has to collect, and then they move into the river, they can win. That's it. Simple as that. They can win. They didn't do that. They kind of just, like, ran in, and it looked really stupid by them, and they died. And now, the thing is, afterwards, BLG should have thought, maybe we should take the dragon, but instead they set up on top side, and they just swing hard to take, like, basically the top turret, and naturally, LNG should not be dying top if that's what's happening, but they did. So they got, like, kills and plays, cool. We got Herald because of it, cool. So in the end, it's still, like, even though they're, like, I feel like they should not give the second dragon over, they still won. Like, in a sense, they still won. So cool. All right. So we have a decent lead. We used the Herald in a terrible way. We just, like, threw it bot lane for whatever reason. And then they pulled the dragon, the third dragon, and that's where LNG just absolutely blew the game open. Right? This is where they put, like, everything, like, seemed correct. Like, if I was drawing this here, like, this is the dragon pit, right? And then you, like, you have this giant wall here, and then there's, like, this bush. Right? Like, they pulled the dragon here. They pulled the major objective here. Everyone was, like, sitting here. You had one guy here. And this is, like, perfect. This is great. Right? So you're just doing this and you're getting out. Because you don't really have the best pull, right? They really don't. And I can't remember what sums were down, whatever the case is. So this should be fine. However, the Nocturne arc comes up. They got the dragon, and then once he goes in, because Rel is like, oh, I'm gonna run in because like this shit is happening, gets hit by arrow. You still just need to get out. But they got like tempted to like want to fight in, and so their carries moved forward, and then they rumbled Ard when the Nocturne Ard was going, and then Scout cleaned up. And for the rest of the game, it was literally impossible to play after that happened, because I feel like what BLG realized is like they need to pull first. They need to make these situations happen before they're on objectives, so they can actually fight, turn, or at least get a pick before an objective, so it's like not so horrific. But LNG didn't give them a chance. I felt like they just immediately. I don't know if it was like immediately after, but on the midway, while there was no flash on the ADC for BLG, they used Nocturne Ard. They killed him. They grouped up. They killed him. Okay, cool. This snowballed into another pick. Baron, like it was just, and Scout was just blasting them. So it was a very impressive turnaround, but I like their draft better, and BLG needs to get their shit together. T1 versus PNG. I mean, what can I say? I mean, it was what it was. They were never gonna win. They have bad macro. They have good macro. Regardless if there's a couple of kills like given over there to PNG, it is what it is. This was surprising. I did say, well, like I say surprising because like I didn't think it was gonna be as much of a blowout. You know, I did actually put down PSG over Met. I literally put down every single team on the left side to win. And I thought PSG would win because, I mean, Frescoe just looks terrible. And I feel like Maple will at least get shit done. Even though he's not going to naturally just like destroy Frescoe in lane, I thought like he's going to get shit done. And I don't think Baron is really going to bully out the Aussie. And honestly, Galio was a terrible counter pick idea for the draft, at least. I understand the concept, but if you're playing Smolder Ziggs and then you have a Galio, it just sounds terrible. Like whoever came up with this draft just really botched it. So naturally, like your damage is like very like up front, just one burst, and if that's it, you're done. That's it. And yeah, it didn't turn out well. Maple popped off, even though he's not like necessarily playing the best Yone, he popped off. TL, I said, oh, actually no. You know what's funny? Wait, hold on. Let's erase that, because in my video, at first I was thinking, did I say TL would win? No, I said Weibo was gonna win. I said every team on the left here, but this is a little bit different from, I guess, what I saw, because I definitely said Weibo would win. And the reason why I said Fnatic would win, but the reason why I said that Weibo would win was because I just could not trust the team finding of Team Liquid. Like, it just, after seeing that, like, them in LCS, scouting them in LCS, and then seeing their first day at Worlds, all I thought to myself was, regardless if they're going to keep the game close because like they'll have the macro, they'll make like some pretty good decisions. I can't see them beating like Weibo in the fights. I just can't. And that's what happened. Like literally TL had great moments in where they could win, and then they have individual player mess ups that just cost them. And it was all around major fights. So in the end of the day, you know, that's why I didn't count on them. And it sucks to say that. It really sucks to say that. Like, I wish I didn't have to say that. Like, I'm voting against, like, NA. But I could not trust them. And I was correct. I was correct. And then, like, especially, like, you know, APA, like, he had, like, some pretty unfortunate screw-ups where, like, he would have, like, won out major fights. That happened again today. Now, I don't know how he's going to be going forward from this, like, tournament. Hopefully it gets better, but so far, like, these screw-ups are just like, he's just trying too hard, you know? It's really cool to see that he has the confidence to do that on a major stage as a rookie, to try to go for it all and make like that huge play. But I have to say, like, if he doesn't have the capabilities to finish it out, it's kind of ruining the games, to be honest. It's kind of ruining the games. So I don't know what they're going to do about that. So congratulations, Weibo. And then Fnatic, this was way closer than it needs to be. like Fnatic is just looking bad. Like they are looking bad. I was like not 100% certain on this one, and like yeah, it's looking bad, and I don't know if they're gonna survive going forward. Like Oscar is still like confused on certain parts of the map. Uh, it's like their bot lane is like fine. I don't know. It's just doesn't feel like they're gonna make it. That's all I got in my head at this point. I just don't think they're gonna make it. So going into like the actual like week, or it's not week 3, round 3 like predictions, and we'll start from the bottom up. Mad versus Gam. I'll be honest, I don't trust Mad. I'm sure Mad could probably find a way to kind of fix their shit, especially because it's not like Gam's ADC is that good. Actually, do I really want to switch it around? Because the thing is, their ADC is pretty weak, like Gam's. They really depend on their top side to perform, and they could perform. They really could. It's really gonna depend on the draft. I think this is like the problem I have with this series is like it really depends on the draft. Because Mad did some stuff that I didn't like. Gam did all right. I mean, like the fact they got close to Fnatic, that's pretty good. And ooh, I'm gonna leave it off like this. I really don't feel too confident in Mad currently. I do think their bot lane is still doing like decent. But right now it's just not clicking. It's just not working. So I'm gonna go with Gam. I'm gonna go with CL. I don't even need to really say too much about this, but I think it's just a macro diff. Like I just cannot imagine them dropping this series to PNG. I just can't imagine it. They're gonna play too tight. They're gonna have good options, and yeah, like regardless if they have mistakes, like even if let's say it gets a bit messy, I think they're just gonna problem solve the game better. Simple as that. Blacklist versus PSG. I don't know. This is gonna get more complicated as we go. So for sure, TeS over Fnatic. These guys are imposters. Like they're looking terrible. And TeS is like one of the teams that I'm now looking out for because they're actually performing pretty well. I'm actually kind of scared of TeS. So I can't imagine Fnatic is gonna beat that team. I think for Weibo versus G2, this is interesting because again, I think LCK's teams are a better matchup for G2. Yes, Weibo makes mistakes, but Light is a legit player. Xiaohu is having a pretty good time as well, actually. And they had a surprisingly good Breathe had a surprisingly good game as Gnar versus TL. And if he starts heating up and doing better, I think that's gonna go a long ways. I think this is gonna be a complicated series still to kind of decide on, because naturally you're gonna say, well, G2, because if they came this close to HLE and they obviously beat up Pain, naturally this should be actually a decently favored game for them. But Weibo definitely is capable of fighting back, and there was some fighting mistakes by G2 that I'm like, really, really. I will say once again, it's a case where I feel like G2 could definitely out side lane Weibo. Like I've seen LPL teams how they tackle side laning and TPs. It's not that great. So okay, in terms of tackling TPs, I mean they burn them quickly to make plays, and due to that, you can sometimes lose your TPs when you don't really need to. I feel like G2 will be a little bit better in that case, and Weibo was one of those teams that actually, oh, you know what? Okay, I'm gonna do this. When I think about it, there actually were cases for Weibo that they were losing their TP when it was not necessary, and because of that, I'm sure G2 can figure that out as well. And so for now, I'm going to say it's basically through the side lane TP usage. And I think they should be able to think about this and outmaneuver. I feel like that's the case. For Fly versus PSG, I mean, Fly is extremely lucky. For one, they're once again getting a situation where they just get to have an easier matchup, which is hilarious. I don't know why that's happening for them only, but sure. See, this one's a little complicated for me because yes, you want to say that PSG has ways to get in and win. It is definitely true. You know, it's not like they're a slouch team or anything like that. But I feel like FlyQuest is actually going to lock it down this time. I really do feel like they'll lock it down this time and like not let some of the freedom happen in top lane. Make sure he gets actually the ideal pick. Granted, I will say that it was good for Whipple that Rumble was not, that got like nerfed. But if people are playing it and it's still working, they probably are going to have to ban Rumble on red side. And he might look to pick it, which would be annoying. Like, it definitely would be annoying, like, for him to have it. So, like, they're probably going to have to ban Rumble. They're probably going to have to ban Aurora. They're probably going to have to ban maybe Yone, too. And, like, that's all your bans ready. So, I'm going to do this. And my reasoning is basically they're going to tighten shit up. I feel like it's the same case for TL. But I feel like they're actually going to, like, get, like, group up, figure themselves out, and tell Whippo, like, you gotta play something, like, good in this situation. And make sure his pick is good. That's how I see it. I feel like they're actually gonna make the right changes for that. And the game should get better. I don't think it's necessarily gonna be just a free win, but I think it'll get better. BLG versus T1, you know, shit. So for this one, I really don't like some of the meta reads that BLG is having currently. And I do think T1 is still a better team at like thinking about side lanes and how to move around, just like how G2 is, but maybe not nearly there still. They're also one of the most dominant Poppy teams if they actually start whipping that out more and thinking about it more. It also is obviously two of the best top laners to play against each other and have like the ability to like warp your play around that. Ben has looked good. Across this tournament so far, Ben has looked good. So that is also a big plus. Figuring out Faker's situation is going to be key. So I feel like they're still not there. And if Aureus is always being banned and they're not... I'm actually curious if like they would be willing to try to pick up Azir in certain situations and look for some picks like that. Because if they can't, it is going to be an issue for like whatever the picks that Faker wants to do. Damn, dude. And I don't feel like Elk and On have been played nearly as good as they could be so far. I feel like they're still not there either as a bot lane. Like, they need to do better. Oh, I'm going to go with BLG. It's another case where I'm like not super tight on this, but again, like you're gonna depend on the mid situation. That's for sure. You need to depend on the mid situation, and yeah, honestly, I feel like a lot of it just can come down to that because Zeus definitely can match Bin, like one of the few tops who can match Bin, and for bot lane, like I just like it really just depends on Elk on like turning it on, and yeah, I just have a gut feeling that it's gonna be BLG. I do think T1 has like definitely a chance. It's just, whoo, betting on BLG 3 times in a row, but they haven't figured out the meta is a little dicey. So this is like my least confident. LC, least confident for my choices. DK versus LNG. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, it's LNG. Like this team is definitely heating up. Like I like the looks they're making and what they're thinking compared to DK. And DK, both games have struggled with their top lane and their support contributing, which is like a no-go that can't happen in this series. Even though I think their drafts have been like fine. I mean, their drafts have been fine, but you can't always depend on your mid jungle AD to just carry you through. And for LNG right now, that's not happening. So I think it's just a team diff. Like, I just think for this one, it's just a clear like team diff for an LNG victory. And so DK will drop to a 2-1 scoreline and try to go into the next bracket. HLE versus Genji. So this one's I'm a little uncertain because it's a rematch, and their finals went to 5 games. I watched it, and yes, it was pretty back and forth at times. And I right now with HLE, they're playing a bit of an older meta, and same with Gen G. So if that's gonna line up that way, and it's just a best of 3, a lot of it really depends on who's just getting like the picks they're used to playing, right? In the end of the day, Rumble definitely be a big thing. And feel like the mistakes that some of Gen G's making, especially with Canyon, is not that great. And for HLE, like the G2 series was difficult, but that's not something like Gen G's gonna be able to replicate. And even the like PSG series, like that should like HLE kind of won. So I might just go back with this again. And again, I think it'll be close. This one again is not. I'm not like I don't have the most confidence in this matchup per se, but because the meta, like their meta, is like similar, this kind of means like it's a little bit of an advantage for them, right? If both these teams have still not really fully like moved into something new, I feel like it kind of pushes it into HLE side, and we'll see how it goes. Because right now, where am I at, guys? I think I am 1, 2, 3. What is this? 4, 8. So I went 7-1, and I went 6-2 for my predictions. For this round, I feel like this is gonna be much harder. There's definitely gonna be like chances of this going poorly, and let's make this even more interesting. This is gonna be a 2-0. Oh, sorry. This is gonna be a 2-0 for TL's side. I feel like this is gonna be a 2-1 for GAM. I feel like this is a 2-0 for LNG. And I feel like this is a 2-1 for HLE. That I'm going to put the series in as well. We'll count this as 1, 2. So it's still 8, right? So there's 8 points on the table. And then to get the series right, it's 4 more. So this will be out of 12. If you want to take your guesses, be my guest. Throw them in the comments. But so far, I'll do this. I'll add that if it's a best of 3 series, it counts as additional points in the pool. Okay? And yeah, let's see how it goes. I mean, these games are really good. Like, this was really fun to watch. This was fun to watch. This was fun to watch. I mean, this was fun to watch. Even this was kind of fun to watch. These ones naturally were not great. I mean, this one should have been better, but it actually was not that great. And I'm sure it's just going to continue from here. Swiss stage has been really great. So thanks for watching, guys. And like I said, make sure to leave a comment on your own predictions.